Hi, nonverbal students. Dr. Ivy again. You're going to get real sick of me. I can already tell you. I'm just kidding. It is kind of nice to get to speak with you without wearing the mask thing. You know, it's odd teaching in a mask. But we got to do it. And but it's helpful to just kind of be here at home in my home office and tell you the things that I would like to tell you but don't always have time for in class. We are picking up Nonverbal Communication Principles for a Lifetime, the textbook. We're looking at Chapter 2. This is the second half of Chapter 2. We've already covered the reflexive cycle. Did that in the last video, if you saw that. And so now we're picking up on about page 42. It is helpful to study nonverbal communication as a series of codes or categories. We just call them codes. And so there's a chapter on each one of those codes, and we go into much more depth. There's a ton of nonverbal research being done in all kinds of disciplines: communication, big time, psych, business. There's a ton of folks who are doing a lot of great research on nonverbal communication all the time. So we tap into that. The first code to look at is environment. We think of the environment in two senses when we study it. The environment itself is a form of communication. It's a form of nonverbal communication. When you think about it, maybe the most beautiful church I ever saw was the Duke Chapel. I was at Duke University. I was interviewing for a job at North Carolina State, and they took me up to see Duke. And we walked in the back of the Duke Chapel, and ahead of me is all this gorgeous stained glass. And the guy was up in the loft behind me rehearsing on the gigantic pipe organ for the next day's Sunday service. And I thought, God must live exclusively right here in the Duke Chapel. It was incredible. So that environment certainly spoke to me. So the environment speaks to you. It's a form of nonverbal communication. One of our political science professors, Dr. Shane Gleason, and I at the TAMU-CC campus are working on a book chapter for a nonverbal case study book that looks at environmental factors on things like WebEx and Zoom, these virtual conferences that we're having so much these days. And it looks at, I don't usually see students' private home environments. You don't usually see mine, but here you are in my office. Behind me are 3 prints from Oxford University. I got them at the Bodleian Library in Oxford. They were actually gift wrapping paper, but I thought they were so cool. And me as a textbook author, I was real drawn to these books. So that's what's framed on the back wall. But I made sure, that the environment behind me was okay. And then I know you can use virtual environments. And so I'll record some of these videos up at the university, in my office at the university, where I have a great view of the bay from the top of 3rd floor of Bay Hall. So environment's important. Environment also, the second way that environment is a form of nonverbal communication is the environment impacts our nonverbal communication. I'll go back to church. There are some churches where you walk in and you just immediately get very formal. And maybe you don't talk very much, or you lower your voice, you make your voice pretty quiet out of respect, or just because the environment is kind of telling you to do that. Then there's other churches, like some of the Bible churches, that some of my family members go to. And it's loud, and you walk in, and it's more like a theater or a gymnasium with a stage and, big screens up, and, a lot of people doing stuff and milling around, and it's just chairs. It's not pews like happens in the more formal churches. So those environments in which we interact with others, the environments that we put ourselves into, affect how we nonverbally communicate in those environments. If you've ever communicated inappropriately for the environment, you get it. And who hadn't done that? Been too loud in a library or whatever. The next code is called proxemics. In the book, it's called Space and Territory. It's on page 44. This is your use of space. This is one of the oldest nonverbal codes ever researched. And it is fascinating. Sometimes it's very obvious, but many times it's very, very subtle. You can tell pretty much how people feel about each other by how they space with each other. Now, talk about something that's changed, because we're in a pandemic, right? We're still in the throes of that thing. And we have this new term that's not in the book. I wish it was, but it's not in the book. It's called social distancing, right? We're supposed to stay 6 feet apart from each other. Maybe except for the people that you live with and you know what their habits are. But even some people are doing that at home because people leave the home, they go to school or they go to work and they come back home. And so social distancing is now a thing. And so because of this horrific virus and what it can do to people and how transmissible it is, we have changed, well, some of us, not everybody, we're trying to change our patterns with other people so that we don't come in as close a contact with them as we used to. So talk about something that's changed. And so you will probably stand in classrooms on campuses. People are sitting, from kids all the way up to college, sitting, 6, 8 feet apart in classrooms, and it's changed a lot. So anyway, that's proxemics, and we also look at territoriality. Human beings are very territorial critters. We like our stuff, and we don't like anybody else messing with our stuff. We don't touch my stuff, and I'm going to lock my stuff, and so I'm going to, mark out my space and my territory, and figure out who's allowed in that space and who's not. We are very territorial. Animals are very territorial, as you probably know. Third code is physical appearance. Physical appearance is a powerful nonverbal cue when we come into contact with people, whether it's this kind of environment, video chat, or face-to-face. We look at people's physical appearance. We take all of that in. It's a very powerful cue. Sometimes it is the first cue before we see a person's eye contact or their facial expressions, or hear the sound of their voice, or know, a touch, like a handshake or whatever. We take in that physical appearance. How tall are you? How, whatever. Skin tone, all that different stuff. Short hair, long hair, whatever. No hair. So physical appearance is a very powerful nonverbal cue. The next one is body movement, gestures, and posture, and we call this a term called kinesics. Some of you may have studied kinesiology. It's just the study of human movement. It's the way you stand. It's the way you walk. You have a unique walk to you. We all do. It's not as unique as our voices, but it's unique to you. Gestures. My hands are going everywhere. I do gesture a lot, I guess. I don't know what a lot is, but anyway, hand gestures. So that's all the movement stuff. Now, under kinesics, as connected to part of the body, are the face and the eyes. They are part of our bodies, obviously. Duh. So, but they're such powerful channels of nonverbal communication. Face and eyes, huge channels of information. So we study them separately. So we study the face, all the different facial expressions that we can make, how we deceive people by masking things in our faces. It's interesting. Eye contact, huge in American culture, huge in lots of other cultures around the world, so we study eye contact. The next category is touch, and touch has changed a whole lot too because of the pandemic. I've referenced that in other videos. The last category or code is vocal expression. Be clear, this is not the words you use, but it's how you say the words. It's how you tone them. It's tone of voice. It's the rate, the pitch, the volume of your voice. It's your pausing. It's all kinds of things, nasal, raspy, all kinds of things about the voice. So it's not the words, but it's the sounds that you make and the way you speak words. Vocal expression. Okay. Last section in here is on nonverbal sending and receiving ability. Please take a look at that section. It's pretty detailed. It talks about sending, which you call encoding, how we, I have to constantly, on these kind of videos, I have to constantly make myself look at the camera because I kind of look at myself, which is sort of odd, but the camera is up here. And so if I don't look up here, I'm kind of not making eye contact with you. I'm kind of making eye contact with myself. And so it's really hard to do because we're used to connecting with a human face, even if it's our own, right? But I'm supposed to be looking up here at this little green light on my computer and making eye contact with you through this technology. So things are changing. So sending ability, how much you encode, how nonverbal are you? I'm kind of a rubber face. I use my face, I use my voice. I'm pretty animated. In the classroom, I'm pretty animated. And so it's things like that. Then on page 52 is on nonverbal receiving or decoding ability. Who do you think is the best category of persons in terms of receiving others' nonverbal cues accurately? Who's the best? Women? Men? I'll tell you who the best is. Parents, and particularly mothers. Now, dads are catching up because there's more dads that are caretakers of children than used to be. But moms are so connected to that, every little thing. And they're so connected and so responsible for the facial expressions and, all of that socialization that's happening. And so parents in general become over time really accurate receivers of nonverbal communication, not just from their own children, but they're pretty darn good at it. Women tend to be better interpreters of others' nonverbal communication than men, except for two things. Men are better at anger, interpreting angry cues, and they're better at deception. And some of that is because they've traditionally been in the workforce a lot more than women. Again, those numbers are changing, but there's reasons for that. So take a look at that. Take a look at the information on the PONS test, PONS, Profile of Nonverbal Sensitivity. It is still being used in research. It's been around a long time, but it's still very useful. Also, the DANVA, D-A-N-V-A, that stuff is talked about on pages 52 and 53. And so we've worked through the reflexive cycle. A little bit on the last part of the chapter on Mehrabian's framework. I will let you look at that on your own so that this video doesn't go on super long. And so I will sign off for now, and we are headed pretty quickly into chapter 3. Thanks, everybody. See you soon. Stay safe.